Hey everybody, Jim here, doing a quick thoughts after just coming back from seeing the movie Deadpool. And, I like this movie. I like this movie quite a bit. This is really the kind of movie that I've kind of been waiting for. Everything about this movie is very much the anti 2015 Fantastic Four. What do I mean by that? Well, the Fantastic Four was so dull and downbeat, so attempting to be serious as can be. It ends up being incredibly tedious and boring and misses all the fun that these characters are supposed to have. This movie fully embraces the silliness and the absolute fun of these comic book characters, and that's what makes this movie so entertaining. This movie is really a comedy. That's really the best way to say it. A dark, dirty comedy, and a good one. Me and many other members of the audience that I saw this movie with laughed out loud numerous times. It's quick fire with its humor. It is joke after joke after joke. Deadpool really is a merc with the mouth in this movie. He uses that mouth and to make joke after joke after joke. And Reynolds just seems perfectly cast in this movie. Basically, you finally get the full potential you kind of saw at the beginning of X-Men Origins Wolverine, but of course that movie in its second half ruined it beyond all measure. This movie, from beginning to end, it's exactly what this character should be. It's set in the X-Men universe. Presumably, it's able to ignore the events of Origins Wolverine because of the whole X-Men Days of Future Past changing the timeline. But to be honest, this movie kind of exists in its own continuity, in its own world, because it breaks the fourth wall so often, and it's really difficult to see where this movie would set in the continuity of the X-Men cinematic universe, which, let's be honest, I like most of Fox's X-Men movies, with a couple exceptions, but continuity is not their strong point. The continuity of that whole series is an absolute mess. By contrast with the fantastically layered continuity of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that goes from both movies and television, Fox's X-Men universe is severely lacking. And this movie doesn't do anything to change that fact. This movie really just exists as a standalone movie. That's really the way people should see it as. And as a standalone, comedic, fun superhero movie, it really works. It takes full advantage of its R rating. It's violent. There's sex. There's jokes that are totally beyond what would be allowed in a PG-13 movie. And the movie supposedly is doing fantastically at the box office because it came out at a relatively modest budget of only $58 million. And you really see all this movie's budget on screen. Back to Fan-4-Stick. That movie supposedly had a $125 million budget, and I can only assume that most of that money was wasted on scenes from Trank's original cut that didn't make it into the final movie, because that much money is not seen on screen in that movie. Alright, this movie, despite having less than half the budget, really, the action sequences feel better done and more exciting, and more expensive looking on top of it. So this movie, even though it's relatively low budget as far as theatrical superhero movies go, you feel like it's using that budget to its fullest, whereas other movies before it feel like you kind of wonder they've been wasting money. Some slight disappointments. One, I'm kind of bummed that this wasn't in 3D. I'm a big fan of 3D, and there's so many moments in this movie that really seem like they were tailored to be in 3D, yet this movie is not in 3D. Probably financial reasons was why they didn't want to spend the money on a 3D conversion for kind of a lower-end movie, R-rated movie that they weren't really anticipating as much from. But it's kind of a missed opportunity. I hope they correct for the sequel. And otherwise, this movie feels a little bit overloaded on the comedy. The comedy is mostly very funny, but sometimes there were some moments I thought I should have kind of stopped and started being a little bit more serious, and it still continued to be a comedy. That's really what this movie should be. It's almost a borderline a parody of superhero movies, like with the fourth wall breakings. It mentions Green Lantern a couple times. At the opening, has a fake version of the opening credits where it lists it's starring a CGI character, directed by an overpaid tool. That gave me a big laugh. But overall, I definitely do not take your kids to see this movie. Movies get R ratings for a reason, and this movie is definitely one for the grown-ups. But if you don't mind a foul-mouthed, bloody movie and you really just want a good time at the cinema with a few laughs, I highly recommend Deadpool. Fox seems to kind of be turning themselves around after their low point last year, and I hope that continues later this year into X-Men Apocalypse. And I'm looking forward to seeing this character more. I hope he gets another interaction with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine before he retires. Basically, you should see this movie if you're in the fan base. Well, thank you very much. I love you all. Continue to like, share, and subscribe and support my channel. Thank you very much. Have a great night and a great time at the movies. Bye.